Hey friends, I hope your week is off to a great start. Today I'm going to be trying Claire Saffitz's recipe for cherry biscuit cobbler. So I saw Claire post a picture of this dessert on her Instagram a few weeks ago, and I had been keeping a close eye on the BA website for the recipe to be published. So it is officially live and I'm thrilled to try this one out today. I do these Bon Appetit recipe tests every Wednesday. If you like this one, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Without any further ado, let's see how this goes. As always, I'll leave a link to the recipe and ingredient quantities in the description box below. For this recipe, you're going to need 2 pounds of cherries. So you can use fresh or frozen. I did not want to pit 2 pounds of cherries, so I decided to use frozen here. To make the biscuits, I'm starting by converting all of the measured ingredients into grams. So I'm really curious about you guys. Do you prefer baking in cups or do you like using grams? Let me know in the comments below. So whenever I'm eating the peel of a fruit or vegetable, I always like to use this vegetable wash. It's basically just vinegar and citric acid, but it really helps take off that kind of waxy coating that they spray on the fruit to make it look pretty in the grocery store. So next I'm just cubing up my ice cold unsalted butter. And then before adding this to the dry ingredients, you want to really thoroughly whisk together all the dry ingredients, then go ahead and add in that unsalted butter. So the method here is really just pinching the butter to break it apart, and what you're looking for is pieces no bigger than the size of a pea. Doing this by hand worked great. I really like that this doesn't require a food processor. However, the next time I make this recipe, I'm just going to use the same pastry cutter that I used in my buttermilk biscuit video. I just felt like it was a little bit easier and got me to the end result a little bit faster. So once everything is pretty uniform, you want to start streaming in the cold cream. So this was a little bit challenging because the bowl was trying to dance away from me. But once you've got that cream all incorporated, just use a spatula or a bench scraper and kind of fold this over on itself a few times in the bowl. You just want to make sure you don't have any dry, unincorporated patches of flour somewhere hiding in the bottom of the bowl. So next we're just turning the dough out onto a well-floured surface to prevent sticking. And this process that we're going to do now is what's going to give us all of the flaky layers when these biscuits bake up. So what you want to do is, using kind of quick hands so that your hands don't melt the butter in the dough, you want to push this down into a square or a rectangle that's about 3/4 of an inch thick. So my bench scraper's got a little ruler on the side, so I was able to do a little check. Once you've got it to the appropriate height, cut it into 4 quadrants and just stack those on top of each other. If any little bits fall off, you can just tuck them between the layers. You're going to smush this tower of dough down so that you can roll it out without tipping it over. And you're going to roll this out to a 1/2 inch thick. I got a little bit carried away here and got a little bit shy of a 1/2 inch. I really do think that you're better off being on the slightly too thick side than the slightly too thin side, because some of my biscuits were just a little bit underwhelming. Plus, I had a ton of leftover biscuits. Claire said that you were looking for only about 40, and I probably had 60 biscuits. So you can re-roll the scraps here, and so I'm using the same exact methodology for my scrap rolling, cutting it into quadrants, stacking it, re-rolling it. Obviously, the more times you handle this dough, the less defined the layers are going to be and the more melted the butter is going to be. So you want to cut the biscuit circles as closely together as possible. And then just pop the biscuits in the refrigerator to chill until we're ready for assembly. So the filling for this cobbler comes together super quickly. It's really just a matter of measuring out all of the ingredients. So I started off with my 2 pounds of frozen cherries. If you are using fresh cherries, you'd want to wash those and remove all of the pits. So that seemed like a really time-consuming proposition, which is why I used the frozen version. Once you've got all the ingredients in the bowl, you just want to give this a really thorough mix to make sure that all of the cherries are evenly coated in the sauce. So Claire called for a 2-quart baking dish or a 9-inch circle cake pan. The cake pan is obviously not as pretty as a nice serving dish, however, it's what I had on hand, so it's what I'm using. Once the cherries are in the pan, you want to press them down to kind of crush them a little bit and just make sure that you have a level surface for the biscuits to sit on. So you want to arrange the biscuits to cover the top of the pan as tightly as possible, and then just brush with some melted butter and then sprinkle with some raw sugar. I'm using demerara sugar, which is what I had on hand. So this will just give you a nice crispy topping. You're going to bake this at 400 degrees for 10 minutes, then reduce the heat to 350 and finish baking until this is super bubbly. The cobbler has been cooling for about 20 to 30 minutes, so it's a little bit warm, but definitely not like bubbly and super crazy hot still. So this is what it looks like. Normally I would eat cobbler in a bowl, but for the sake of being able to show you, I put it on a plate here. So the biscuits look nice and crispy on the top. They don't look totally like sogged through on the bottom, so I think this looks nice. The sauce is a little bit loose here, so I don't know if this is because I used frozen cherries rather than fresh. But Claire said you could use frozen and didn't say that there were any adjustments needed. So I'm surprised by how loose the sauce is. I'm gonna go in for I guess a whole biscuit and a cherry. So looks like a nice hearty bite there. Oh my gosh. So the biscuit on top is super crispy. I hope you were able to actually hear that. So the biscuit on the top is really crispy from the golden brownness and that demerara sugar that I sprinkled over the top. The bottom of it is more like a normal cobbler though, where it's very like soft and tender, not soggy, it's still kind of holding together, but the texture contrast is super, super interesting and really delicious. So it's a little bit on the sweet side. I mean, it is sweet cherries, plus we added sugar to this, so not entirely surprising. See if you can hear this. Really crispy biscuit. Gonna go in for another biscuit bite. I mean, this is just absolutely delicious. Really good. So I really hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.